According to the president of Nintendo, the Switch 2 prices could increase because of the tariffs. In a recent statement, Furukawa said that promoting the Switch 2 is currently Nintendo's main focus. He noted that the company's policy is to be mindful of tariffs and include them in regional pricing, and that if the assumption of tariffs changes significantly, they will consider and implement any pricing adjustments. One analyst mentioned that if tariffs remain as they are now, Nintendo might absorb the cost. However, they previously predicted a possible price increase of $50 to $100 for US buyers. But that same analyst believes that Nintendo will likely stick with the $450 price tag, since this figure was decided when tariff concerns were already in the picture. Now, let's keep in mind that President of Nintendo of America, Doug Bowser, has already stated that the $450 price tag has nothing to do with the tariffs. So currently, we have sources to believe that the $450 price tag has nothing to do with the tariffs. We have reason to believe that the $450 price tag was already adjusted for the tariffs. And then there is a third argument in which that the $450 price tag already accounted for the tariffs, but they didn't quite realize how high those tariffs would be. Seemingly, everybody is just kind of grasping at anything here. And seeing as how I am a gaming enthusiast, and I assume many of you as well are also gaming enthusiasts, then I would say this is about as good of a time as any for me to share my opinion on the matter. Because if Nintendo themselves can't decide whether or not their prices have anything to do with tariffs, and industry quote-unquote experts are just throwing random data at us and random opinions at us from left to right, it seems like it's fair game for someone like myself to do the exact same thing. So let's have some fun, as one enthusiast to another. I'm of the opinion that President Furukawa is full of crap. I think that Doug Bowser was prepped in his response. I think it was very clear that he was told that if the tariffs come up, don't say that that's the reason why the price is at $450. And the reason he was told that was because if the tariffs don't end up hitting, we would expect the prices to actually go back down. And then if the tariffs do end up hitting, Nintendo gets to look like the good guys because they didn't raise their prices after they were hit with tariffs. And then after the Switch was revealed, the tariff situation became a little bit more unpredictable, which was why they halted the pre-orders. But after a few conversations were had and a few conclusions were made, Nintendo found that it was in their best interest to now reopen the pre-orders and allow their happy buyers to pre-order their Nintendo Switch 2. And they've had a crazy opening pre-order, record-breaking, best numbers you could imagine. Or so people are claiming, completely negating any thoughts of scalpers, any realistic thoughts of bots, and all around ignoring the fact that even the worst selling consoles in recent history have done well at the beginning. But no, we're being modest and forecasting 15 million units sold in the first year, and everybody's eating that right up. Part of the fun of being an enthusiast is you can speculate. You can speculate why a console might do well, and you can speculate why that console might do poorly. But at the end of the day, you're just an enthusiast. You're a fanboy. As a fanboy, I speculate that the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders aren't going nearly as well as Nintendo had predicted. There are regions around the world that received Switch 1s that are not going to be receiving Switch 2s because they don't think it'll sell well, primarily because of the price. There are areas around Europe where you could still jump online at big retailers and pre-order your own Nintendo Switch 2. Here in the States, when the Switch 2 went live, we are all meant to believe that it was impossible to grab a Switch 2, right? I'm assuming that if you're somebody that barely even tried to get a PS5 online, you might think so. If you're somebody that never had to refresh for an hour or two to buy something, you probably think it was impossible to grab a Switch 2. And I can only speak from my experience and my observations. But it seems like almost everybody that wanted to pre-order a Switch 2 got one, minus a few people here and there. Within my own circle of friends, people that had never scalped before, people that were asking me if there was any point in even trying to buy a Switch 2 online before the pre-orders went live, every single one of them that wanted to get a Switch 2 pre-ordered got one. Not a single person that I know personally was not able to pre-order one if they wanted to. And you expect me to believe that the demand for the Switch 2 is higher than the demand for the PS5. Now, in fairness, there's no chip shortage. The Switch 2 should sell more than the PS5 did. But that's not because I think so many more people want the Switch 2. I think it's because so many more people couldn't get their hands on a PS5. I can't reiterate this enough. The Wii U had a pretty good first quarter of sales, had pretty good pre-orders. There are online forums you can find of people saying they were worried they would not be able to get a hold of the Wii U days before it launched. So as far as I'm concerned, using my own deductive reasoning, it is clear to me that the most likely scenario here is that Nintendo is trying to scare everybody into buying their Switch 2 now. I don't think they have any intention to raise the prices. I think they already raised the prices, and that's why it's at $450. At this point, they're just seeing that the numbers aren't what they believe they are, and they're starting to get worried. They're starting to see the pushback. They're seeing the discourse online. You can argue it's a small minority, but a small minority was against the Xbox as well, and that was 12 years ago, and they still haven't recovered. I think they're starting to get worried. I think they're starting to look for any reason to get more people in on the Switch 2, to generate even more hype for the Switch 2. There will be another wave of Switch 2 pre-orders, and there will be so many more people now that are afraid about a potential price hike that will go for it because they weren't going to go for it before. At least that's what they think. And they might actually be right. It could be a coincidence, but now I'm seeing comments in various forums, in comment sections of articles, in comment sections of various videos, and even videos of prominent Nintendo YouTubers today saying, hey, you guys should buy the Switch 2 now, because if you don't, you might have to buy it at a more expensive price later. This could be a happy coincidence? Maybe, but I don't think so. I have no reason to believe any word that's coming through Nintendo or through their news outlets, these people that have benefit from Nintendo doing well. This is the same Nintendo that in the past month caused so much misinformation to go around that even days after the Direct, people were not sure if games were going to be $90 or $80. And technically they're both right, because Mario Kart World is $80 and Breath of the Wild, if you wanted to get the full Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 experience, including all the DLC, is going to cost $90. So technically, yeah, still is $90. This is the same Nintendo that when they were asked, what should people do if they can't afford the Switch 2? They were told by the president of Nintendo of America, humorously named Doug Bowser, that they were too poor to afford it, so they should just buy the Switch 1. In that same interview where he mentioned that the Switch 2 was not priced at $450 because of the tariffs, which now people are saying it is, I don't know. This is the same Nintendo where when they were asked if their Joy-Cons would have drift, their response was that the Pro Controller feels like a GameCube controller. This is the same Nintendo that is offering game key cards and, according to many sources, might only have a 64GB cartridge option, which means that third parties are being strong-armed into buying the game key card to sell their games in because it wouldn't make any financial sense otherwise, allowing for even physical games to become digital for a company that in their most recent software update, that being Nintendo, provided additional clarification that if you were to purchase a digital game from Nintendo, you do not own that game. So naturally, they found a way to provide more digital games across the board on their console by shifting the blame to the third parties. The same software update where they updated their end user license agreement to tell you that just because Nintendo does you wrong if you buy one of their products, doesn't mean you have the right to sue them. The same Nintendo that went after Palworld today, claiming that they were stealing their idea from Pokemon because their character was riding on one of their flying birds, because apparently nobody flew on a bird in a video game before Pokemon. That Nintendo, the one that promised us that game sharing would not change the way that it was, and then in the next software update after making that same promise, they took away the ability to play simultaneously with a second console that you happen to be game sharing with. That Nintendo. I wish that I was smarter, because all you smart people out there believe that Nintendo is doing no wrong, believe that they are selling it and not lying to anybody, not milking anybody. I don't know how to be smart like you guys. I mean, obviously, I gotta be the dumb one here because you can't be dumb. That's gotta be me. Because all I see is a corporation. A corporation that has a history of anti-consumer practices. A corporation that has a history of weaponizing nostalgia against all of their buyers. A corporation that has historically always showed up late to the party of how to use modern-day tactics in order to please their customers. And it seems like now they've figured out how to use modern-day tactics into rinsing their customers, and they do so by hiring people like Doug Bowser, formerly of EA. That's all I can see. I wish it wasn't, but unfortunately, that's all that I view as an enthusiast. The unfortunate reality is that I've separated the fictional plumber from the non-fictional parasites. I don't know how I did it, but it happened. And clearly, there are a lot of people out there that agree with me. But I'm just a content creator. What do I know? Maybe I'm just milking it. Maybe my channel is getting clicks and that's why I'm doing this. Which is literally the point of YouTubing. But I could easily be a YouTuber that's getting a ton of clicks for supporting Nintendo too. That's not that hard. The amount of sponsorship emails I've gotten in this past month that I've rejected because they're asking me to sell Switch 2 products is uncanny. I'm being asked to sponsor and sell their Switch 2 accessories after bashing Nintendo for 10 to 15 minutes. Do you guys realize how much money is on the table for me? You make more money off of sponsorships than you do off of ad revenue. I could easily sell out, and I would be making even more on YouTube if I just became a pro Nintendo fanboy. But I'm not the one milking things here. The only one milking anything right now is Nintendo. Don't buy into their scare tactics, and don't believe a word that they're saying. With this recent news that they're threatening to increase the price, for the first time in an entire month, I actually believe they're losing. I believe they're actually getting scared. You could call me naive, you could call me optimistic. I got nothing to lose. Worst case scenario, I'm just an idiot yelling into a microphone in a year from now and I was completely wrong. That's fine. But if I'm right, and Nintendo is actually starting to feel the pushback from so many angry Nintendo fans, then we all get to celebrate not only with cheaper Switches, but for the statement that we make against the gaming industry. And that thought alone is enough to keep me from being scared into buying a Nintendo Switch 2. That 10, 15, or 20% chance, 5% chance even, that giant could be humbled and the people arise against a corporation. That's enough to keep me going. Hopefully, it's enough to get some of you to cancel your pre-orders, and if not, I hope Nintendo gives you an ambassador program when they drop the price for the rest of us when we buy in. Thank you all for tuning in. Nintendo is starting to lose the plot, and it is becoming clearer to me by the day.